Okay, so you know how we all have those moments where we're just utterly and totally wiped out? I mean, I know I do, and I'm guessing a lot of you listening probably feel that way too sometimes.
Yeah, definitely.
Well, this time around on the deep dive, we're tackling a topic that I think a lot of people can relate to: burnout.
Burnout. Yeah.
And you've gathered an absolutely amazing selection of articles and research for us to dive into this time, right? I mean, we're talking everything from Spavelous magazine to
Yeah.
the Harvard Business Review.
Yep.
We've even got some super in-depth stuff from Sage Journals and PubMed Central. And it's obvious from this list that you're really trying to get to the bottom of this whole burnout thing.
I am.
You want to figure out what it really means, like what actually causes it, and most importantly, what we can do to actually recover from it, right?
Totally. And I think you're so right that a lot of people are feeling this way these days.
Yeah, it's that feeling of being just constantly drained, overwhelmed by this never-ending list of things we have to do.
Always on the go.
So where should we even begin with all of this? I'm kind of curious, how should we approach this mountain of information?
Well, I think a good starting point would be to just make sure we're all on the same page about what burnout actually is.
Okay, that makes sense.
We want to really unpack the core of it, explore all the different things that can cause it based on what we're seeing in these articles and research papers.
Okay.
And of course, we want to figure out some concrete steps that people can take to recover.
Mm-hmm.
And I think with all these different sources, we've got a really good chance of painting a really comprehensive picture for you today.
I love that. And something that really stood out to me right away is this idea that burnout is just laziness or some sort of personal weakness.
Oh, yeah. That's a common misconception for sure.
And the Spavelous article addresses this head on, which I really appreciate. They basically come right out and say, burnout isn't laziness, it's a loud cry for change.
I love that.
And then to really drive the point home, they say, nothing is wrong with you.
Powerful stuff.
It really is. And it feels like such an important foundation to lay because I think a lot of times when we start feeling those symptoms of burnout, our first instinct is to blame ourselves.
Oh, absolutely. It's so easy to fall into that trap.
All right. And the Spavelous article points this out. They highlight that the World Health Organization defines burnout as stemming primarily from chronic, unmanaged workplace stress.
Right. And that's a huge part of it for a lot of people.
Right.
But it's interesting because you've also included resources that kind of broaden that perspective.
Yeah. I mean, it's not always just about work.
Right.
Right.
Definitely not.
Like the Spavelous article also talks about other areas of life that can contribute to burnout,
Like what?
like caregiving,
Yeah.
parenting, and even that constant pressure to be the best version of ourselves.
Ah, yes. The never-ending quest for self-improvement.
Right, that whole live your best life thing, which ironically can end up making us feel completely exhausted.
It's true. All that striving can take its toll.
It's like we're juggling all these different roles and expectations.
And dropping the ball more often than not.
Exactly. And the Spavelous article does a really good job of describing how this whole burnout thing can kind of creep up on you.
Like how?
Well, it often starts subtly, right? Like maybe you're just feeling more tired than usual and your coffee isn't doing the trick anymore.
Yeah, you need like 5 cups just to get through the morning.
And your to-do list is a mile long and it feels like you're never going to get to the bottom of it.
I know that feeling.
And then it can escalate from there. Like maybe you start canceling plans
You just don't have the energy for anything social anymore.
and you find yourself scrolling endlessly on your phone just to escape.
It's like a mindless zombie scroll just to tune everything out.
And maybe the worst part is you start losing interest in things you used to love.
Oh, yeah. Like hobbies or activities that used to bring you joy.
Yeah, that passion just kind of fades away and it's so disheartening. And you know what? I'm really curious. I mean, does any of this ring a bell for you? Like, have you experienced any of those early stages of burnout?
Oh, absolutely.
Mm.
I think most of us have at some point or another.
Yeah, no, I definitely have. And I think it's so important to recognize those early signs so we can start addressing things before they get out of control.
Totally. And the Spavelous article then goes on to talk about some of the underlying reasons why we might be headed towards burnout in the first place.
Okay, like what kind of things?
Well, one thing they highlight is that we often neglect our own needs.
We put everyone else first.
Exactly. We're constantly giving and doing for others, but we forget to take care of ourselves.
Oh, I'm so guilty of that one.
Aren't we all?
Yeah.
And another big factor is that we tend to prioritize productivity over peace.
Like we're so focused on getting things done,
Right. And we think that being busy means we're being successful.
but we're not actually paying attention to our own inner peace and well-being.
Exactly. And that's a recipe for disaster.
And I love that phrase they use in the article. They describe burnout as an uninvited roommate.
It's so true. It just kind of moves in and takes over.
And it's not easy to get rid of.
Nope, it takes some serious effort.
You know what's really interesting is that the Spavelous article also emphasizes that burnout isn't just an individual problem.
Right, it's not like a character flaw or anything.
Exactly. They actually say burnout is not a personal failure, it's a systems problem.
Which is something you'd probably see discussed in something like the Harvard Business Review, right?
Yeah, they often look at how organizations themselves can contribute to burnout.
Yeah, like unhealthy work cultures, unrealistic expectations, things like
Right.
that.
Because it's not always just about us as individuals. Sometimes the systems we're operating within are set up in a way that makes burnout almost inevitable.
Exactly. I think that's a really important point to remember.
And the article then goes on to talk about something that I found really thought-provoking, which is the role of wellness culture.
Oh, interesting.
Like how sometimes all these self-care trends and fads can actually distract us from the real issues.
Like they're just band-aids on a deeper wound.
Exactly, because you can't just meditate your way out of impossible work expectations.
Or a bubble bath won't magically erase the stress of caregiving overload.
Right, and it's like our society almost glorifies being busy.
Like it's a badge of honor to be constantly running on empty.
And I think that can make it even harder to recognize and address the systemic factors that are contributing to burnout.
Totally. Because if we're always focused on individual solutions, we might miss the bigger picture.
Right, and it's like you said earlier, sometimes it's not just about fixing ourselves, it's about changing the systems that are making us sick in the first place.
And I think that's where resources like SHRM can come in.
How so?
Well, they often talk about the importance of things like supportive workplace policies.
Okay.
Things that actually prevent burnout instead of just relying on individual wellness initiatives.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense because if the environment itself is toxic, no amount of self-care is going to fully fix that.
Exactly.
But amidst all of this, the Spavelous article includes this really empowering quote from Marie Forleo.
Oh, I love Maria Forleo. What'd she say?
She says, "You are not powerless. You are not stuck. You are allowed to stop, reevaluate, and take your energy back, even if the world around you hasn't changed yet."
Oh, I love that.
It's such a good reminder that even when we're facing these huge systemic challenges, we still have the power to choose a different path for ourselves.
Exactly. We have agency even when it feels like we don't.
And I think that's so important to remember because it can be easy to feel helpless when we're talking about things like burnout.
Oh, for sure. But we have more control than we think.
And the Spavelous article also offers some really helpful clues to help us identify whether we might be on the road to burnout or if we're already there.
Yeah, they call them the 3 quiet signs you might be burning out.
And I have to say, these really resonated with me.
Tell me about them.
Well, the first one is always tired but can't sleep.
Oh, man, that's the worst.
And the article explains that this isn't just about having bad sleep habits.
Right. It's not just about needing to drink less caffeine before bed or whatever.
It's actually a sign that your nervous system is in overdrive.
It's like your brain can't switch off, even when your body is completely exhausted.
Yeah, and it's interesting because when you look at research in areas like neuroscience and psychology, like the kind of stuff you might find in SAGE journals or Frontiers in Psychology,
Yeah.
they often talk about the impact of chronic stress on something called the HPA axis,
The what?
the hypothalamic pituitary adrenal axis,
Okay, I'm following.
which is basically this system in your body that regulates your stress response.
Okay, that makes sense.
And when we're under constant stress, our bodies release all these hormones like cortisol.
Or stress hormones.
And over time, this can really mess with our sleep pattern.
Like it disrupts our natural sleep-wake cycle.
Exactly. And that's why we can end up feeling both wired and tired at the same time.
It's frustrating, right?
It is. And the second quiet sign of burnout is this feeling of being numb to things you used to care about.
Oh, wow. That's a tough one.
The article describes it as your joy meter flatlining.
Like you just don't feel anything anymore.
Yeah, and they emphasize that it's not that you don't care anymore.
Right, it's not like you suddenly become a heartless monster.
It's more that you're so overwhelmed that even the thought of engaging with things you used to love feels like just another burden.
Yeah, it's like you don't even have the energy to feel joy anymore.
Exactly, and this actually aligns with what psychologists call emotional exhaustion.
Okay, so there's a name for it.
There is, and it's a major component of burnout.
So basically, it's like we're constantly giving so much emotional energy, whether it's dealing with our own stress or supporting other people, and eventually we reach a point where we just don't have anything left to give.
And even things that used to bring us happiness just don't do it anymore.
It's like our emotional reserves are completely depleted.
And then the third quiet sign of burnout is this feeling of being overwhelmed and underproductive.
Oof, tell me about it.
It's that situation where you have this massive to-do list,
It's like a scroll that never ends.
but your brain just feels like it's short-circuiting at the mere thought of trying to tackle any of it.
And then what happens?
Well, it often leads to all sorts of avoidance behaviors,
Like what?
like suddenly getting lost in social media,
Oh yeah, the black hole of scrolling.
or deciding that you absolutely have to reorganize your entire closet right now.
Anything to avoid the real work.
Exactly. And it's all tied to the way that chronic stress affects our cognitive abilities.
Like our brains just can't function properly when we're constantly stressed.
Right. And this relates to something called executive function.
What's that?
Well, it basically refers to those higher level thinking skills that we need to plan, organize, and stay focused.
Okay.
And when we're burned out, these functions take a major hit.
So even though we might have all these things we need to do, we just can't seem to manage them effectively.
And that's where we end up feeling so overwhelmed, and yet we're not actually getting anything done.
It's like a productivity paradox.
It really is. And, you know, another really important point that the Spavelous article brings up is the disproportionate impact of burnout on women,
Oh yeah, that's a huge issue.
especially women of color.
And I think our sources really shed some light on why that is.
Can you elaborate on that a little bit?
Sure. So the Spavelous article points to a few key factors.
Okay.
First of all, women often shoulder a larger share of caregiving responsibilities.
Both at home and sometimes even in the workplace,
Exactly. And they also tend to carry a heavier load of emotional labor.
which is basically the invisible work of managing and responding to other people's emotions.
Right. It's like being the emotional caretaker for everyone around you.
And on top of that, societal norms often condition women to be more agreeable
And to prioritize other people's needs over their own.
and to be less likely to set firm boundaries.
And when you consider women of color,
Mm-hmm.
these burdens can be even heavier due to things like systemic inequalities, microaggressions, and the added stress of navigating racial bias.
It's like they're facing this perfect storm of pressures that contribute to burnout.
Exactly. And this really highlights how those simplistic self-care suggestions,
Yeah, like just take a bubble bath.
right, those can fall incredibly short for people who are dealing with these complex and deeply rooted issues.
It's like offering a single aspirin for a chronic illness.
A Band-Aid solution that doesn't address the root cause.
Right. And it's so important to acknowledge those systemic factors, because if we don't, we're just going to keep putting the burden of fixing things solely on individuals.
And that's not fair or effective.
So given everything we've discussed so far about what burnout is, how to recognize it, and the systemic forces at play, the big question becomes, what can we actually do about it?
Right. How do we start reclaiming our energy and well-being?
And I love that the Spavelous article has a whole section titled How to Reclaim Your Energy and Yourself.
Oh, yeah, that sounds promising.
And they make this really encouraging point that healing doesn't have to involve some massive life overhaul.
That's a relief to hear.
Right. It's actually about making small, consistent changes that add up over time.
I like that approach.
And they call these small wins that lead to big shifts.
Okay, what kind of small wins are we talking about?
Well, the first one they suggest is incorporating micro rests into your day.
Micro rests. What are those?
They're basically super short breaks, like just 3 minutes.
3 minutes. That's it.
Yep, that's all it takes.
What do you do during those 3 minutes?
The key is to step away from all screens and just sit in silence.
Silence. Like no music, no podcasts.
Nothing, just you and your thoughts.
That sounds kind of scary.
I know it can feel weird at first,
Okay.
but the article explains that it's not about being unproductive. It's about giving your nervous system a chance to reset.
Okay, that makes sense.
Like, imagine your nervous system is this buzzing, overloaded circuit board.
Okay, I can picture that.
And these micro rests are like little mini power downs that give the system a chance to cool off and reboot.
So it's not about being lazy. It's actually a strategic move to improve your overall functioning.
Exactly. And you know what's really cool is that there's actually a lot of scientific evidence to support this.
Oh, really? Like what?
Well, if you look at research on mindfulness and stress reduction, which you can find in places like PubMed Central, they've found that even short periods of quiet can have a significant impact on reducing stress hormones.
So it's not just some new age woo-woo thing. It's actually backed by science.
Exactly. And the second small win, the article suggests, is to start setting boundaries that feel like self-respect.
Boundaries. Oh, that's a tough one for me.
I know it can be hard, but the article offers this really simple yet effective strategy.
What is it?
Instead of automatically saying yes to every request that comes your way,
Okay.
Start using the phrase, let me get back to you.
Oh, that's good. I like that.
Right, because it creates a buffer.
A buffer.
Yeah, it gives you a chance to actually assess your capacity before committing to something.
So you're not just saying yes out of habit or obligation.
Exactly. And you can actually take some time to think about whether you have the time and energy for whatever it is.
And this aligns with a lot of the stuff they talk about in places like the Harvard Business Review, right?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Like effective time management and avoiding overcommitment.
Right, because it's all about being more intentional with how we spend our precious time and energy.
And that pause, that, let me get back to you,
Mm.
pause,
Mm-hmm.
it can be so powerful.
It really can, because it prevents those impulsive yeses.
Yeah, the ones where you're like, oh, shoot, why did I say yes to that?
Exactly, and it helps you avoid getting sucked into things that are going to drain you dry.
And it's a way of showing your self-respect.
Right. It's basically saying, my time and energy are valuable, and I'm not just going to give them away freely.
Love that.
And then the third small win the article suggests is to schedule joy breaks.
Joy breaks.
Yeah.
That sounds fun.
It is. It's about intentionally setting aside time to do things that bring you genuine joy.
Like what kind of things?
Well, it could be anything that truly lights you up.
Good.
Like maybe it's painting or listening to music or spending time in nature.
Oh, I love that.
Or maybe it's something completely different, whatever it is that brings you a sense of peace and happiness.
Okay, I'm on board with this.
And the article emphasizes that even just 10 minutes of dedicated joy can make a difference.
10 minutes, that's all.
Yep. It doesn't have to be a huge chunk of time.
That's manageable.
And you know what's cool is that this actually ties into a lot of the research on positive psychology.
Oh, really? How so?
Well, they found that experiencing positive emotions, even in small doses,
Okay,
can have a really beneficial impact on our overall well-being.
like it counteracts the negative effects of stress and burnout.
Exactly. And you know what I love about this whole small wins approach?
What?
Is that it reminds us that we don't have to wait for some magical moment or some massive life change to start feeling better.
Right. We can start taking small steps right now,
And those small steps can have a ripple effect.
creating positive momentum.
And you know, the Spavelous article sums it up beautifully. They say that these small actions aren't just superficial self-care gestures.
Okay.
They're actually lifelines that remind us of our humanity.
I love it.
They help us reconnect with our needs and our inherent rhythms.
Instead of just viewing ourselves as productivity machines.
Exactly, because we're so much more than that.
So much more.
And you know, all of this brings us back to one of the core messages from the Spavelous article.
Which is,
Burnout is a signal that something needs to change.
right, it's like a wake-up call.
Exactly. It's not a reflection of your character or your worth.
It's just a sign that your current way of operating is unsustainable.
And it's time to listen to that inner voice that's telling you you deserve more than just surviving.
You deserve to thrive.
Exactly. And the article actually outlines 4 steps to recovery.
Okay, I'm all ears. Tell me about these steps.
Well, the first one is to radically reassess your energy budget.
Reassess my energy budget. What does that even mean?
Well, the article uses this analogy of treating your energy like you would your money.
Okay, I'm intrigued.
So it's about taking a close look at where you're spending your energy.
Like, what are the biggest drains on my energy?
Exactly. And then figuring out what you can delegate,
Okay.
what you can postpone, and what you can just eliminate altogether.
Wow, that's a pretty radical approach.
It is. And the article suggests actually writing this down.
Like creating an actual energy bubble.
And asking yourself this question. If I respected my energy as much as my money, what would I stop spending it on?
Wow, that's a powerful question.
It really is, because it forces you to think about your energy as a finite resource.
Something that needs to be protected and managed wisely.
Exactly. And it can help you become more aware of those unconscious energy leaks that are draining you dry.
And this whole idea of an energy budget, it aligns with a lot of the principles of resource management.
Oh, totally.
Like, it's not just about personal well-being. It's a concept that can be applied to all areas of life.
And you know what's really interesting is that the article also points out this connection between constantly taking on too much and physical symptoms.
Like, what kind of physical symptoms?
All things like tension in the neck and shoulders.
Oh, yeah, I definitely get that.
And even foot problems like bunions.
Really?
Yeah, it's crazy, right?
It is kind of wild.
But it just goes to show how interconnected our mental, emotional, and physical states really are.
Like, our bodies are constantly giving us feedback.
And if we're not listening to those signals, we're going to pay the price eventually.
So we got to tune in and pay attention.
Exactly. And the second step to burnout recovery, according to the Spavelous article,
Yeah.
is to set boundaries that actually work.
Oh, boundaries. Those are my nemesis.
I know they can be tough, but the article emphasizes that it's not enough to just wish that people would stop making demands on you.
Right. You have to actually take action.
Exactly. Effective boundaries require clear communication and consistent action.
And this is something that's talked about a lot in resources on healthy relationships and well-being.
Oh, yeah, for sure, because boundaries are essential for protecting our time and energy.
And for maintaining healthy relationships with ourselves and others.
And the Spavelous article actually provides some really helpful examples of what effective boundaries might sound like.
Okay, give me some examples.
Well, one is, I'm not available for work calls after 6 p.m.
Ooh, I like that one.
Another one is, I can't take on that project right now. Can we revisit this next month?
That's a good one, too.
And then there's the simple but powerful, thank you for thinking of me, but I need to say no so I can recharge.
That one's short and sweet, but it gets the point across.
It does, and it's all about reframing boundaries as acts of self-care and self-respect.
Not as being mean or selfish.
Yeah, exactly. Because when we set boundaries, we're essentially saying, I value my well-being enough to protect my time and energy.
And that's a good thing.
It is. And the third step to burnout recovery is to stop outsourcing your worth to productivity.
Ooh, that's a deep one.
It's about challenging that deeply ingrained belief that our value is tied to how much we produce.
Like our worth is measured in output.
Exactly. And the Spavelous article really calls us out on this.
How so?
Well, they basically say your worth is not tied to how much you produce. You're allowed to rest without earning it. You're allowed to be joyful without proving your usefulness.
Wow, that's like a revolutionary concept in our culture.
It is, isn't it? It's like we've been programmed to believe that busyness equals importance.
And that rest is something we have to earn.
Right, like it's a reward for being productive enough.
But the Spavelous article is saying, no, that's not how it works.
You're allowed to rest just because you're a human being?
And you're allowed to experience joy without having to justify it.
Exactly, and they suggest treating rest not as a luxury, but as a responsibility.
Like a non-negotiable part of our daily routine.
Exactly, like brushing our teeth or eating breakfast.
So we need to actually schedule it in.
Yep, block out time for rest and relaxation just like you would for a work meeting.
And learn to say no even when we technically have the time.
Right, because sometimes we need to say no to protect our energy, even if our schedule is technically free.
It's about prioritizing our well-being over our to-do list.
And the fourth step to burnout recovery is to get honest about what you want next.
Ooh, that sounds introspective.
It is. The article points out that sometimes burnout can be a sign that we're no longer aligned with our deeper desires.
Like in our careers, our relationships, or our overall life direction.
Exactly. And it takes courage to ask ourselves, is this path still serving me?
That's a tough question to ask.
It is, but it's so important because if we're not honest with ourselves about what we truly want,
We're going to keep feeling stuck and unfulfilled.
and the article acknowledges that this process of self-reflection can be challenging.
Yeah, it can bring up a lot of difficult emotions.
But they reassure us that we don't have to make drastic changes overnight.
Right, it's a process.
And the key is to start by acknowledging our true feelings and desires.
And to take small steps in the direction of what we want.
Because, as the article wisely says, we can't heal in an environment that's still depleting us.
So we have to be willing to make some changes, even if they're scary.
And a really important point the article makes is that burnout recovery is not a solo mission.
Oh, yeah, that's so important.
It's crucial to reach out for support.
Like talk to a therapist.
Yep, or confide in trusted friends and family.
And advocate for necessary changes in our workplaces and communities.
Right, because we don't have to go through this alone.
And asking for help is not a sign of weakness.
It's a sign of strength.
It takes courage to admit that you need support.
The article also touches on that feeling of losing yourself in the midst of burnout.
Yeah, that sense of becoming defined by our roles and responsibilities.
And forgetting who we are at our core.
Like our true essence gets buried under all this stress and exhaustion.
But the article offers this really comforting reminder that our true selves are still there.
They're just waiting to be rediscovered.
And the journey of reconnection begins with curiosity.
Like asking ourselves questions.
Exactly. Questions like, what did I genuinely enjoy doing before I felt this way? What kind of rest truly feels restorative for me? What am I really craving, not just physically, but emotionally and spiritually?
Those are good questions.
They are. And the article suggests simply jotting down your reflections without judgment.
Like creating a safe space for self-discovery.
And finally, the article shifts its focus to building a burnout-resistant life.
Okay, that sounds like a good goal.
It is, and they acknowledge that we can't eliminate all sources of stress from our lives.
Right. life is always going to throw us curveballs.
But we can develop strategies to safeguard our energy and well-being.
Like what kind of strategies?
Well, one is to prioritize living in alignment with our energy levels.
Okay, instead of just blindly following the clock.
Exactly, because our bodies are constantly giving us clues about when we need to rest, recharge, or shift gears.
So we need to learn to listen to those signals.
And another strategy is to define our own personal definition of success.
Instead of just buying into what society tells us is successful.
Right, because true success is about living a life that feels meaningful and fulfilling to you.
Not about achieving some arbitrary external standard.
And a really important strategy is to intentionally build rest into our daily routines.
Make it non-negotiable.
Exactly, just like we wouldn't skip brushing our teeth or eating breakfast.
We shouldn't skip rest either.
And it's important to remember that rest doesn't just mean vegging out in front of the TV.
Right, that's more like passive scrolling.
It's about engaging in activities that truly nourish and restore us.
Like spending time in nature.
Or reading a good book.
Or taking a nap.
Or meditating.
Whatever feels truly restorative for you.
And the article also suggests finding a burnout buddy.
A burnout buddy? What's that?
It's basically someone you can share your journey with.
Like a support system.
Exactly. Someone who can offer encouragement and accountability.
And remind you that you're not alone in this.
And who can help you stay on track with your self-care practices.
I like that idea.
And finally, the article emphasizes the importance of celebrating even the smallest steps forward.
Acknowledging our progress.
Because healing is a gradual process.
It's not going to happen overnight.
And it's so important to recognize and appreciate those small wins along the way.
Because they're all evidence that we're moving in the right direction.
And so as we wrap up this deep dive into burnout, I just want to reiterate that you deserve to thrive, not just survive.
Everyone deserves to thrive.
And if anything we've talked about today has resonated with you, please know that you're not alone.
You are not broken or lazy or behind.
You're likely just deeply tired and fundamentally human.
And burnout is not a failure.
It's often a sign that you've been incredibly strong for far too long.
In the face of some really demanding circumstances.
And true strength lies in recognizing your limits and choosing to prioritize your own well-being.
It's about giving yourself permission to rest and recharge.
And so let this be your invitation to start making those small intentional shifts.
To create a life where rest is inherent joy, is a rhythm, and the journey of reconnecting with yourself is an ongoing and compassionate practice.
And as the Spavelous article so beautifully reminds us, you are allowed to slow down. You are allowed to choose ease. You are allowed to rest without apologizing.
And remember, your essence never truly disappeared. Reconnection begins with curiosity and those small nurturing actions you choose to take for yourself.
Burnout may have knocked you down,
but it doesn't get to write the ending of your story.
You do thank you for joining us for this deep dive.
Until next time.
Bye. Bye.